Do you like baked goods? Cookies, brownies, cakes? Well, there are certain ingredients and harmless chemical reactions to make those baked goods bake correctly. Two major baking agents are baking soda and baking powder. But what's the difference?
Baking soda is actually the solid form of the chemical sodium bicarbonate. This substance is used to make goods rise as they bake. Sodium bicarbonate is slightly basic, meaning when it reacts with acidic substances, bubbles of carbon dioxide are released. These bubbles are what give the airiness to the baked goods to make them fluffy. This means that recipes which call for baking soda usually include a strongly acidic ingredient such as citrus juice, buttermilk, or vinegar. Baking powder is remarkably similar to baking soda. It is also made up of sodium bicarbonate, however, it contains cornstarch and a few acids already mixed into the powder. The acids mixed into baking powder differ between brands. Some examples of these acids include cream of tartar, sodium aluminum sulfate, and monocalcium phosphate. If substances are more neutral, meaning not acidic or basic, they don't react as well with other substances. Since baking powder is more neutral than baking soda, it doesn't have to mix with a highly acidic ingredient to react and create carbon dioxide bubbles. However, the acid that is mixed into it is constantly slowly reacting with the sodium bicarbonate. So over time, baking powder can become useless if it all reacts with itself. In other words, it can expire.
Now to understand the structural and character differences between baking soda and baking powder, there's another big difference. When added to a baking mixture, baking soda and baking powder react differently. Baking soda is what we call single acting, while baking powder is what we call double acting. When baking soda is added to a bake mixture, it begins to react instantly, making the batter rise, but only if there's an acid present. This is what we call a wet start reaction, as it begins when it touches something wet, but it only reacts at that one time. Baking powder has two reaction starts, a hot start and a wet start, but reacts instantly because there's an acid present. The batter then begins to rise when baking powder is added to the mixture and then once again lives in the oven, leading to the baking of delicious treats.
What causes the batter to rise, either in or out of the oven, is the formation of carbon dioxide. For single-acting reactions, there's one release of carbon dioxide, but for double-acting, there are two releases of carbon dioxide. Before placing in the oven, the batter is a mixture, but adding heat creates an irreversible reaction, changing the chemical state of the batter into a cake or cookies.
To make a really fluffy cookie, we're going to use baking powder, because baking powder produces carbon dioxide both when it's in the mixture and when it's in the oven. When we're using baking powder, we're going to use 3 times as much baking powder per single measurement of baking soda because baking powder is a little weaker. But be careful, because using too much baking powder will cause your cookies to taste a little bitter. Baking soda causes your cookies to brown, creating that sweet, homemade, caramely taste that we love. Using baking soda without an acidic ingredient, such as vinegar, citrus juice, or buttermilk, will cause your cookies to taste metallic.
All of this chemistry is great and all, but why do we care? Well, we want to create the perfect cookie, that's why. When cookie dough is placed in a really hot oven, water vapors turn into steam and escape the cookie, causing the cookie to rise. The baking powder or baking soda also turns into carbon dioxide gas, making the cookie rise even further. You can use either baking powder or soda depending on what type of cookie you want.
We like big fluffy cookies that were made from baking powder, and we could do this all because of chemistry.
Happy baking!